You're listening to the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, where each week we have a conversation with everyday martial arts practitioners. From the first motivation to train, martial arts enriches our lives and becomes a lifestyle. Welcome to the individual stories of those martial artists living that lifestyle. You are listening to the abbreviated version. For those of you checking this out on YouTube, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. Full-length versions of this podcast can be subscribed to at our Patreon page, is www.patreon.com/malmag. Or individual full-length episodes can be purchased at our Gumroad page at malmag.gumroad.com. Before we begin this week's program, I would like to remind you to check out martialartslifestylemagazine.com to see articles on the martial arts. Click on the Store tab to find products for the practice of Southeast Asian martial arts, featuring Timmy B's brand sticks. Check out the Courses tab, currently featuring a course on the Dos Manos method of the Filipino martial arts. Also check out our Places to Train page, featuring top quality martial art academies from around the world. And of course, check out our events page for seminars and events coming up around the world. To see your school listed in our Places to Train page or your event on our events calendar, contact us at malmagonline@gmail.com. This week I get on Zoom and I connect to Texas again and I talk with Dr. Alberto Almeida, who is a medical doctor and martial artist. I know him through the Inosanto family of martial arts, and he's an instructor under Guru Dan. We talk about how he got started in martial arts, how his dad was in the CIA, fasting as part of a martial arts diet, the health benefits of many of the different martial arts we practice, and much more. Sit back and enjoy. Welcome to the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, and welcome to Season 3. This will be the second episode, and I'm talking with a friend you're in Texas, right? I think Texas?
Yes, sir. Brownsville, Texas.
So, all right. Well, this is probably one of the kindest gentlemen I've met in our greater Inosanto instructor circles. Always a pleasure to have him in town. Just a wonderful spirit of a person to come in. This is Dr. Alberto Almeida, and I'm really glad to get you on here finally, because you're always bringing me good stuff when you come into town, and you're someone that I've kind of wanted to talk to on this show for a long time, because I think you got probably a really interesting story and insight into not only martial arts but the physicality and the stuff we do. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. A real honor to be on with you, Tim. Thank you, brother.
Awesome. Well, let's just kind of start at the beginning. How did you get involved in martial arts, or when in your life? Was it early on or later on, or?
Yeah, I started very, very early on. Believe it or not, my dad was a CIA agent, and
oh, no kidding!
And I kind of have the yeah. And so he was already a judoka back in the 60s, when I don't think that most people even knew what judo was back then, right? And he was really into that mentality of being prepared. He was a very smart guy, was an agricultural engineer, and he was a CIA agent. So I kind of believe that a lot of us are genetically warriors. I think that with the amount of training that you and I have had, we already see that. It's not that a person can't be trained or whatever, but we already have some genetics, something going on in a lot of us. And so I think that I already had some of that instinctively, and then I started doing training. My dad passed away very young in the line of duty, and I started with some Kempo, and then saw Enter the Dragon in 1973 at the Aztec Theater in San Antonio. And I had already been training, but after that, I got hit with that fever, and have been training and sort of following the way in one art or another since then. So,
wow.
I have my black belts in Rojin Ryu, which is a Goju-Ryu style, and I have my 4th degree in Taekwondo and in Mudu Kwan, and I've practiced Wing Chun Kung Fu, and I've been a brown belt in Jiu-Jitsu for about 12 years, but I'm still a brown belt because mentally I feel like I don't have I'm not a black belt in my mind yet. So although, this and that, but so I think I may be a brown belt in jiu-jitsu forever. But but I really enjoy still training. And one of my greatest gifts has been to get to know and befriend and have Guru Inosanto as a just a light in my life, you know. To me, that's been a big deal for me spiritually. And so right now, my path is kind of following movements that fix the body through body, mind, and spirit. And then I apply these functional movements to my patients. And I'm finding out that these attributes also at the same time are like fixing or doing your martial art at the same way. There's a big tie in here, I think, physically and spiritually between the arts and the things that we do. And that's kind of the path that I'm in. I sometimes think that I'm specializing in the 12th area of Kali, which is the area of medicine and meditation and healing and all of the arts combined. So that's my path right now.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because that's, I think, when Guru Dan goes through those different areas of Rakasta Kali, and when he brings that one up, he's like, "This is the one I don't know." Meaning him, doesn't know that much about, and he's like, "I can't teach you so much of this." But the funny thing is, I think in the level of spirituality, I think he does a lot of teaching of us without being preaching,
Lost,
because what he
right?
does is
But you know how he is.
yeah,
He's just himself being his overly humble self, right?
yeah,
Without,
yeah.
and maybe he's telling you in his way, he's telling you, this is the one I'm teaching you the most,
Yeah, it could be. If we think about it,
right?
so his an example, right? So I think he doesn't like to tread on people's faith, and he talks about that. So whether you're whatever religion or not one at all, I think he doesn't want to impose any of that. So that's actually a very respectful
Right.
thing, and that's actually, I think, a very spiritual practice in and of itself to be that way.
Oh, yeah,
Then
yeah, yeah.
there is the way,
Agreed.
that he, yeah, and the way he conducts himself, and he's very humble and respectful. So that's, I think, most people would look at that as somewhat spiritual. And then, his demeanor toward us, I think, is very healing. Maybe he doesn't know how to put your spine in alignment, or necessarily, give you a prescription of physical therapy for a particular ailment, but he does, at 88, he still does things. So as an example of being healthy through a lifestyle, which I think would be part of the health and the healing, obviously. And the movement he does teach us actually is quite therapeutic, and for mind,
Right.
body,
I
and
know
spirit.
the
So
the daily movement. His way of just being thankful, right? Even as he like directs and teaches and gives things, you always get that ability of knowing that there's thankfulness going on and that there's healing and the knowledge of, hey, you need to take care of your body and you need to move daily and the approach. So definitely a big part of all of this approach that I have, a lot I feel has been channeled through things that I've learned, from him and applied them, and then you start seeing sometimes things within there, right? That you find that, okay, well, this fixes this and this movement fixes that. I found that a lot of even the ancient katas and the older things that we do, a lot of times we don't understand that many of those positions are actually set up for healing, not necessarily just, oh, you're going to get in this stance to combat, but because you're in this stance, now you've put your shoulders in this better position. Now you're doing scapular retraction. And so a lot of these movements are actually healing, a lot of the internal and external rotations that you do in blocking and this and that. So I feel that even a lot of the ancient people that have made katas that we have, we're doing a lot of those things just to make sure that the student maintain good movement and flexibility by practicing this.
mhm. Yeah, definitely. I definitely want to get into this a bit with you too, but I want to kind of go back into your history a little bit, if you don't mind. That was quite a resume that you told me. So Kempo was the first art that you did.
Yeah, I did Kempo a little bit, and then I went into Taekwondo. An uncle of mine who was a Green Beret gave me a my first book by General Choi Hong Hai, and so I
Oh,
actually
okay.
started studying that book. I actually started studying that book, and I guess in elementary school, between elementary school and junior high, I had a was teaching my neighborhood in my backyard. So so we had this whole workout group in our backyard that we would train outside, and one would be blindfolded in the middle, and then later I would take them into my garage, which was completely blacked out, and then we would train in there, and everybody would be in the dark, and I'd be without the blindfold. So we I think I watched too much kung fu back then, but we actually did a lot of that type of training, and it was a lot of fun. So and so I ended up getting my black belt under Andres Mencias and General Choi Hong Hai, and then later my fourth degree under Sinil Choi. So I've done Mudu Kwan, Taekwondo, and I have my black belt in Roshan Ryu, which is like a Goju-Ryu style of karate. And then I trained. I actually, been blessed. I started doing jujitsu originally under Jean Jacques when I would go to the instructor courses there in Marina del Rey, and then got to train under Hoist Gracie, under Andre Galvao, under Rodrigo Gracie, and always whenever I go back, I'm blessed to get to train under Jean Jacques, and to be honest with you, uh, just the way he teaches. I mean, everyone that I've trained with has been wonderful, but just the way he teaches resonates with me so much. However, I'm still stuck on lesson number one with Master Jean Jacques, which is for me, breathe, breathe.
Right, right, right,
He'll tell
right,
me, breathe, breathe, Almeida.
right. No, it's very true. It's like my experience with jujitsu is nowhere near where you're at. I'm kind of like where you think you're forever brown. I'm like forever white belt in it. But um, I was fortunate enough to go with Guru Dan a few years ago. I guess it was probably pre-COVID. I guess I'd have to look at the dates, but there was a time when Hicks and Gracie did a series of 3 Wednesdays um, in what he called, I think, his invisible jujitsu. And so Guru was going, and they said, "Hey, will you go with him?" And I'm like, "Yeah, 100%." So went, and it was like it was at Horian School out here, I think, and it was amazing because it was a who's who of jujitsu in it. Like you saw all these, like
Wow.
everything from white belts to coral belts and black, all the black belts. Like everybody was there, and it was funny because the lineup was basically, it was a big school, and the lineup was all the way around the room. Like it was really, because this big, horseshoe plus, size line, and it was so cool. And he put a lot of emphasis on that too, the breathing. It was just like um, very simple. What I liked about it was things I could understand as a beginner at it, but it meant a lot to even the most seasoned person there. And so that to me was
Right.
a really great thing, in that it was a lesson that we could all get something from. And then I was lucky, like the third session, I was partnered with Eric Paulson. So I got Hicks and Gracie's material through Eric's eyes. Even better.
Wow. Yeah. Another, another genius. Another
Yeah.
genius. I mean, that guy's such a wonderful soul, and such a brilliant, brilliant mind. Again, a real humble person. But yeah, I'm very impressed with Master Paulson also.
Yeah.
Impressive, impressive. All of
He,
these, all of these people, yourself and everyone that I have the honor to get to be around when I go to visit and so on. It's just always a blessing, right? Um, And I still, as I approach everything, man, I try to approach it as if I know nothing, because in a way we really don't know anything. But so I try to be
Yeah.
real fresh with everything, and you know, as I'm learning, always trying to learn that way. And when I teach even my students or our kids or those people that we love, I try to tell them, hey, always act like if you know nothing, because if you're going in telling people, oh, I know this and that, they don't know what they need to teach you or not teach you. So sometimes they hold back, right? So
Oh
just,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, be humble and and even just like that simple thing of just breathing, even just going back to think about breathing, because sometimes you even forget about it, you know?
Oh
And
yeah,
it
yeah.
doesn't take very long. When you're not breathing, that's it. So, you know, keep working on that. So even taking time every day to practice the breathing that we hear a lot of times we think about, oh, meditation, you know. For me, the most powerful meditation is that mindfulness of thinking of just the breath, right? The breath in
Right.
and the breath out. And when you're starting to do that, and when you slow it down, where you're actually strengthening up the diaphragm and you're strengthening up that vagus nerve, so that mind body connection becomes stronger. And the time while you're in that period of time, you're actually super oxygenating your blood, so your brain and everything. And because you're slowing down that breath, you're actually stimulating the vagus nerve. So a lot of things are going on while you're in that time. So just doing those 10 to 15 minutes, a lot of times we feel that because we know about meditation, it's enough, right? And just like, right, what is it Bruce Lee says, right? Knowing is not enough, you must do,
Right. Yeah.
right?
100%.
So same thing, and same thing in these little things of daily putting together, where you have a daily ritual, and in that daily ritual you decide to be doing your deep breathing, and you know, you do your flexibility and you do your muscle control, and you work on all of these things together. So that's kind of the tool that I've been led to work on for several years now. And as I do it, I'm doing it in a state of meditation. I think about guru a lot, right? So I end up coming back and showing guru, and one time he says, doc, you know, that was inspired by the Holy Spirit. And for him to tell me that, and again, like you said, he doesn't say anything to step on people's beliefs, but he knows my beliefs too and whatever. And so it was very confirming for me when he said that. And so as I do it, yeah, it's really great because you're getting all of these different things together, where you're training your mind, you're training your body, you're taking a deep breath, you're working with flexibility, you're working with muscle control. And so all of the movements are kind of set up in a way where they're fixing the end range motion in each joint of the body. So when you have uh when you have pain, you have loss of function, right? So, but at the
Hmm.
same time, when you have improvement of function, now you have a decrease in pain, but it's also become an anti-aging movement. So by having a ritual where you go through, and of course, a lot of people do that when they're doing yoga, others do it when they're doing Tai Chi, correct? So this is something kind of like that, but I've incorporated or assisted and incorporate all of these arts together. And it takes about 20 something minutes to do it. And when you finish, you feel like, hey, you know, I just meditated, I just did deep breathing, I just did flexibility, I just did qigong, I just did yoga, I just did tai chi, all in one. So it's an engineer would say it's a way of making it lean. So you put a lot of things. We've put a lot of these different arts together, so it's kind of cool. So that's what I'm working on, and it's what maintains me. Because a lot of times with my work schedule, I have a hard time actually doing a regular training session where I can have students that I teach regularly, because
Right.
I'm the doctor for the county, so I take care of all of the county jails. I take care of the kids detention center. I also have my own practice, which is family practice, sports medicine, and addiction medicine. And I do acupuncture and manual therapies and all of that. So when you put it all together, I teach my students whenever we're together, whenever we're hanging out,
Wow.
and then I'll do classes for like the local doctors, therapists, physical therapists, yoga instructors, this kind of thing. Where all the times I'll do a class and pull together. So the beginning of my class is kind of cool, Tim. The beginning of the class I call the way. And the way is when I teach people, how to get your stance, your core, your movements. I'll use double stick, but I use it for neurological training. So I'm really getting
Okay.
people that have maybe never used a stick or never used a weapon, maybe. And then I get everybody into doing this training with sticks, but I'm doing it really to be doing this two-handed, two-sided neurological stimulation. So it's wonderful. So people really, really get into it when they do it. And I've kind of come up with a little system where it makes it really quick, and I'm having my students learn Heaven 6 in the first class
Wow,
through
that's
a little
great.
neurologic, yeah, which is kind of cool. So and then the second half I call the present. And the present is when, we perform these movements together, which I feel is like meditation, prayer, flexibility, muscle control, all of that together. And it kind of came up with that name as the present because you have to be in the present when you do it. I feel that it's like a present, right? And as you do it, it's like if you're presenting yourself. So we start first with the movement with the double stick and kind of learning positioning and how to develop your core. I work sort of from a deep resting squat, and that's where I have my students to develop their stance and their core from, because I am kind of in the belief that you want your daily stance to be your fighting stance. And that way, from that position, you can go from all the way standing and drop down all the way into a resting squat. And then from there, of course, you could transition to all kinds of different movements, whether it would be like from silat or whether it would be from capoeira or whatever. They all come out of that same position. So so I teach a lot of that transitional type movements, and that ends up being part of the second half that we call the present. And the present is where we do kind of our ritual movements every day to improve your range of motion while you're breathing and doing it kind of in a meditative state. So you bring together the idea and you together. And it ends up being very nice because it's also cardiopulmonary and cardiovascular rehabilitation. So as you go doing it every day, you end up increasing your amount of breathing squats. And so that causes, strengthening of your heart and your lungs and new blood vessels through something called angiogenesis that you end up doing because of that deep breathing and the way you increase the movements over time. It's pretty
Wow.
cool.
So are you finding that are you using any of this martial art to treat patients? Like, are you extracting from it to treat patients, or are you more using going the other way, taking your medical knowledge and using that to strengthen your training for your students, or is it a two-way street?
It's actually both. It's actually both. So I use parts out of this where I'll teach a person, let's say that I realize that a patient has a certain problem with a shoulder asymmetry or a knee problem where they're having a knee meniscal tear that gets locked. So there's a movement to fix almost every single thing that I can think of. So I end up teaching them.
And this concludes the abbreviated version of the podcast. Please consider supporting the program by going to www.patreon.com/MALMAG and subscribing to the show. You can also purchase this individual episode or any individual episode at our Gumroad page. That's malmag.gumroad.com. Thank you for listening to this episode with Dr. Alberto Almeida. Coming up next week, I talk to yet another doctor in San Diego. That is the karate doctor, Dr. Rafael Gutierrez. Our Malmag online store at martialartslifestylemagazine.com has a full selection of Timmy B's brand sticks for FMA and Krabiker Bong. Timmy B's brand now selling in Japan as well. Beautiful Timmy B's brand shirts and Dos Manos shirts are available. We also have sarongs, malongs, and wooden training knives. An online course in the Dos Manos method for FMA is available under the Courses tab. More courses coming soon. Check out the Places to Train tab to find schools near you, and click on the Events Calendar page to see what seminars and events are happening all around the world. And of course, visit our main page for articles on the martial arts. Music by Arthur J. Martial Arts Lifestyle Magazine and the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast are trademarked and copyrighted by TNT LLC.